Hello, everybody. I would like to welcome you on our webinar on how to implement and control AI in your development team. I hope you can hear me well. I would appreciate if you write me on the chat below or on the side that you can hear me, and maybe you can add from what city you are listening. That would be great to see some nice cities around the world. Today we have the hottest day of the summer in Poland, but fortunately we have air conditioning. Okay, maybe we should. Okay, I can see the audio is fine. Okay, let's start. So our today's webinar is about bottlenecks in implementation of AI in your development team, and moving from more hype into more organized, managed, and measured way of doing that. It should take us around 1 hour, but also you can receive a recording afterwards. But hopefully you will be here to answer some questions, to ask some questions regarding the adoption of AI. You will also get additionally the AI assessment survey that you can use to measure that in your organization. Okay, let's start. My name is Greg Lipke, and I'm CTO in House of Angular. For a couple of years, I'm involved in the creating of software, starting from being a simple developer into being a CTO, company owner, and creating a lot of products on the way. Lately, I had a few, let's say, opportunities to be part of the projects that are involving agentic AI coding from very scratch, but also using AI as an assistant into projects. And I saw that it's not so really positive from what I expected. I expected, okay, we will have some struggle with code generation and so on, but unfortunately, there is an issue somewhere else, and I wanted to share that with you. My company, House of Angular, is besides being an expert in Angular frontend and so on, we are also really deeply involved into AI, agentic coding, and projects like that. But we are also involved into Angular Love community with more than 20,000 participants. I think that's the biggest Angular community in the world. So also there you can find some public workshops if you are interested, and also the company's workshops, the pretty closed one, tailor-made for the companies. Okay, let's start with some perception. 90%, how to say, there's 90% reduction of how actually in reality AI works than we predict. I mean, so developers are predicting that we'll have like 24%, but there's like a 43 percentage gap between that fact. So in general, we have a feeling that it's working, but on the other hand, it's not. That's why probably you are here. So my first question for you would be, who from you measures AI impact, and with hard deliveries, so not servers, like you, if you are able to measure actually what it's delivered and if it's going faster or not by using AI. So I would appreciate if you answer. One of you wrote in the forum before webinar that AI helps, but it doesn't feel as a speed up. So I think exactly that that is done in this research done this year. That it's hard to turn that feeling into actual numbers. So I would like to maybe see some answers regarding the measurement of AI impact. Okay, if there are no answers, let's continue. So more than a half of the nowadays codes is generated by AI. And it's really growing. But what is actually an outcome of that? So in general, as it's written on the slide, nobody trusts it and everyone uses it. And there's really like a small amount of, 1/3 of developers is only trusting the output, and on the same time, 46%, so almost half, is distrusting. And from the research, we are losing 1/3 of the working week, actually reviewing the code. So we become reviewers. So that's our new job. Actually, it's pretty, let's say, boring to just review it. We would like to create it more and so on. But there's also a hype phase that is over. So we are like over this hype phase that everybody was like, okay, that's changed our life, we lose our jobs and so on. That didn't happen. Right now, we are in the management phase, which means that we need to measure. And another point and output from the research is like after 60 days of acceleration after adopting AI, we're actually stopping or even slowing down sometimes, which means that there's really huge space for improvement in that area. So in general, 90% of us, so almost all, I believe that all of us that are pretty conscious are using AI tools, agents or any other, but actually the real adoption is around 40%. That's by GitHub and Copilot, so probably that number could be different from different sources, but those are their numbers. But actually only 10% of it come from the licensing. So also myself, when we introduced the licenses for Copilot in the very beginning, then for Codex, for Claude Code, for our developers, I thought, okay, we having really smart guys on board in our company, because we always aim for ambition and so on. So they should really fast adopt, create new habits, create new processes, and so on. But it doesn't work like that. So the real question is not do they use AI, but if I or you control how they're using it. So we are basically stacking in three places, and those three bottlenecks, as I call them, are the main subject of our webinar. So the first is like a team coordination, sharing the context and so on. The second would be like what's happening in the business, decisions, legal part, and so on, and stakeholders, sign-offs, QA, and so on. And the third one, it's maybe the simplest one, amount of code that we are generating, but the consequences are much more complicated. We can talk about it in a second. So in general, I strongly believe that using shadow AI starts with wanting to be productive. So you're working in a company, you see that you have nice tools that you can use. Maybe they are not approved by your enterprise, maybe they are not approved by the legal team and so on, but you would like to speed up your work. And of course, like 100% of people are using that, but actually the difference from using shadow AI and doing that in the right way could be like 4 to 7 hours per week. So in both cases, let's say, teams could use AI, one as a shadow AI, another one as a shared context, and so on. So my question for you guys is, do you know what AI tools your team really uses? So including private accounts, and you can type it from 1 to 5. So 1 means that you don't know at all, and 5, it's really well mapped and you are aware of everything. From my observation, it's pretty challenging to know that. Okay, but in between that, if you're answering, I would like to address that not only shadow AI is like not only spending more for tokens, because if you are, of course, buying that as an enterprise, as a company, you either spend your own money or you are using actually the free version, which is even worse because there's more limitation, it's slower, and there's a lot of sensitive data that is sent to the servers. It's maybe not significant, but there are a lot of examples that some code was actually leaked out from the LLMs. Oh, I can see that there are some pretty good answers with knowing. I mean, I appreciate that. I personally know some partner companies or my colleagues from other companies that they are using it and actually not telling anybody because it's forbidden in the organization. For example, one enterprise introduced Copilot because at the early stage it was the best, and right now they struggle with that and trying to introduce, let's say, Codex or Claude code because it's much better nowadays. Okay, and we audited one of our European clients, and there was a lot of unapproved AI tools in daily use. We did an anonymous survey for that, and people start to use different tools. And when we introduce, let's say, the right stack and some clear, let's say, statements and some clear rules, signing some kind of informal contract with the guys, we measured that we recovered around 10 hours a week because the guys shared the context and so on. And in pre-webinar, 60% of you said that there is some structure in your company, but it's inconsistent. And 40% of you that said that everyone uses AI all their own way. So there's no structure. So I would compare that everybody is using different, programming language or different IDE, and nobody is sharing actually the good practices and best practices and tips and tricks and actually for being more productive. But the important thing is that we measured something before, and so there's rational behavior. Okay, we have some old ways to measure. You estimate a task, you make that task, and actually it's not working so much anymore because there are two types of people. First of them are using AI and they are making their work faster, efficient, and so on, and they uses that time to do more. So actually to make new tasks, to port forward, to refactor some old part of the code, to make the quality better, whatever, you name it. And there are some other people that they are just doing their work as they did before, and they are just having more time to sit on the couch or on the couch, and do nothing, or let's say make their life easier. Of course, this is some kind of transition period, which could lead them to some troubles in the future. So I will show you how to measure that and pay attention, because in my belief, some of organizations that we work with are partially blind. I mean, right now, because honestly, they don't know actually if the estimation that they're given, if it's actual the velocities change or not, if the people are able to do more or not, if the bottlenecks are in different place that the code generation, which we will talk about it a bit more. So there's, from my perspective, there are a few fixes for that bottleneck. First of all, is sharing the model memory, and it's about, let's say, creating some agents, MD, Claude MD, rules, skills, MCP servers. And most of you probably know that. It's not really rocket science today to use those, but actually, most often you just create it once, and you start to use them, and nobody is talking about it anymore. So in my opinion, even if for advanced teams that are using that, you should talk about it, you should review those files. If you create new rule, you should add it there. Of course, it's versioned on the, let's say, Git or any other repository, so then you can have a merge request, you can comment it, you can discuss it, or you can have a meeting about it. So this context file is some kind of AI memory for the team, and I think that's pretty important to have it, to talk about it, because it's like a next senior employee that have a lot of knowledge that you share with, and so on. And it's used wisely, it can really help. But there was also some voices from you in the forum before a webinar that you had some, let's say, concerns about the intellectual property against LLM providers. So the short answer would be, if you use enterprise plans, there's like a checkbox that you can check, and so there's no training data, so your data is not really sent for training and should not leak. I cannot guarantee that. But if you have some, let's say, crown jewelry of your project, so you have something that is really hidden, it's really important for core business of your company. Let's say, like as a, I don't know, recipe for a Coke that is hidden in the safe, nobody knows it, and so on. Then you should consider having an LLM on your own on premises, and then invest in that. In the long run, it's a bit cheaper, but the most of the case you won't have legal issues with your legal department, and business issues if that leak out, and so on. If everything gets really, let's say, hidden on premise inside your organization. And another thing is that probably if you work in the bigger teams, you can recognize some AI champions across your team. I strongly recommend to pay attention to those people and identify them, make them, how to say, use their early adoption skills, enforce that, give them space. From the research, it could double your adoption speed in the organization, because those people are, passionate about, they are motivated, they're ambitious, they are really up to date, and it's not easy to be up to date with the AI tools nowadays, because you read about new model and next day it's another model, and next day somebody distillated it and it's giving for half price, and next day one model disappear because somebody in US decides so. and so on. So it's not really easy to be up to date, but those people, there are more than other people. So if you enforce them, if you have right people and you have a right program for them, it can benefit a lot. And the last thing, it's about SDD, so specification-driven development. So it's something more than a shared memory of the model. So the specification-driven development is like a single source of truth. So you're not actually having a source of truth in documentation on, I don't know, Confluence, Google Drive, you name it, or in Jira, whatever. You have a specification inside, let's say, the agent, and that's a base for generating the code, validating the code, testing the code, doing all the decision. And for example, I don't want to recommend, there's a lot of software like that, and you need to test which one is good for you, which one works best with your LLM, because for the harness, for example. And GitHub reports from the GitHub says that they are able to have roughly 10 times fewer regenerating from scratch cycles with their spec kit. So I think that's pretty significant. AWS says that they are able to deliver 40 hours of, let's say, work in 8 hours of human time, like when authored with the specification first approach. So this is pretty important to at least take a look, at least try. There are some comments for the, let's say, Claude code. There are some comments from Codex and another Copilot that you can use inside your IDs and your tools and so on, that can be helpful for creating that specification to feed that data. Sometimes there's too much of it. You need to balance for your own needs, but it really pays off. We have a project that we are using that, and we are synchronizing that with Jira, with Slack, and so on, and it's really helping. One day you decide, okay, I want to do some new way of testing on that project, and we run the tests, and agent use this old specification and don't ask any more questions, and suddenly you see the things that would take sometimes a few days to test, and you can do that overnight simply. Okay, so in general, the role structure for that fix. Start with the baseline, start to measure, making an assessment. I would like to share with you the assessment that you can use. You could use our tool. You can find it on chat here. If you do that, we can meet one-on-one. I mean, I will share some at the end of the webinar. I will share the option to make an appointment with me and talk for free and so on. But about those results, you can also take it by yourself and so on. So first of all, you should run some kind of maturity test internally, even thinking a lot about it, talking with people and so on. Then you should identify the AI champions, also talking with people and so on. Then you should, let's say, meet and agree on some tool set, agree on some way of working. We are using SDD or we are not using, we are using that skills, we are using MCP servers for that, and so on. Some kind of general architecture for that. We also can help with that if you need. And give yourself a bit of the time with that. So try not to change it so much, because then it's hard to do a retrospective if you are changing. Let's say you will, okay, let's go for Claude Code for 1 week. Okay, then let's change to Codex, let's change to whatever. And then it's hard to do a retrospective and actually measure how it works for you. the best thing would be to just observe it for 2 months. Of course, there could be some new models. You can adapt a bit, but not really changing whole architecture doing that. I think for enterprise, really short amount of time. Okay, so there's another bottleneck, number 2, which means that you can really before, I mean, as I remember, most of the time the bottleneck was in the coding. That's probably why you spend so much time on enforcing that to be agile, to do a lot of unit tests and so on, to have a nice specification and to make as less issues in the very beginning as possible, because writing a code took a lot of time. Right now, it's not so much anymore. I think, I mean, yeah, let's have a question. So what blocks your team right now? So if you are using agentic AI, so you are blocked more by writing the code or waiting for decision, design, requirements, sign-offs, and so on. So what would be on your end? I mean, I'm pretty curious about that. Because in general, if you map in your head your slowest queue for, let's say, decisions, it's almost never the coding nowadays. I mean, quality assurance, reviewing that code. So edge cases in specification, waiting for one manager to get back from holiday and read that generated documentation and sign off the specification and so on. Yeah, somebody just wrote that reviewing code from Claude takes most of the time. And bad communication, yeah, lack of definitions. Yeah, I agree with that. And the system, of course, as it's every, let's say, change system, it's as fast as its slowest loop in general. So I create this kind of chart to try to show that. So we have like no so much of code generation bottlenecks anymore. So there's pretty wide sector, but then we need days for decision and specification. As you already, I'm seeing on the chat that you are writing about that. Okay. Some documentation written by AI without being reviewed. Yeah, I saw it. Sometimes I open it and that's completely irrelevant, and it takes time to read it. And then you try to generate code based on that, and it's even worse. Yeah, I understand that. So in general, so again, there's like designs need to be made. You need to have a review, QA, then maybe security, maybe legal department, maybe another client check, and so on. And then you deliver and you release, and then you have a feedback and you start over. So I think what's really important is something that we need to make some kind of measurement. I call it here SLA of the decision. So AI return of investment is limited by the whole organization, not only development team anymore, because before, okay, the development team was expensive and so on. Right now, I have a feeling, and I can see that from in different projects, that sometimes developers are, trying to go back and forth because they are waiting for decisions, and that's super expensive because that's the burnt cost that you never get back after it happened. So I have few, let's say, fixes from my experience. So this is not only theoretic, we are already using that in one of our projects. We started, there's one example, we started to generate proposals for the clients in HTML pretty fast, because if you have a right skills, you have a style of your, let's say, project that you are using, any concept, maybe using material design, maybe using any other, but it can be defined in the MD files somehow. And then you can send few proposals in static HTML. Super easy to make with agent nowadays. Before it was a real pain, maybe with some tools to drag and drop, but actually not so good. But right now you can send few proposals and somebody don't make it from scratch. You can see 3 options. Okay, I select that one, we go forward. We try that. It works very good. Sometimes we need to push the decisions even more forward. So, okay, for example, we have, let's say, filter on the list of clients, offers, whatever. And in the filters, we need to select by what we are filtering. And in the specification, it's not really given, because somebody said, okay, it need to be filtered, but you have a lot of fields and you won't put them, every of them there, because it would be too much. So you, by using an agent, by using your common sense, you select 3 of them, you go forward, you can flag that into the code. Okay, that's the decision making made forward. So let's say to be discussed in the future, but actually you are having something working. Before agentic AI, that would be a stupid thing, because then going back to that place, changing it, that would be expensive. Right now, if the code generation is not so expensive, going back and the agent actually super, he can get back exact to that point, because it's the right markups in the code, and most of the time not forget about anything. Can get back to that and change it in a matter of minutes, not days. So actually, you need to push more decisions by your developers, actually risking a bit more, but you can get much better results. But in general, you also can make some kind of measurement. I will talk about it in later slides, but you can measure the decision making, which was also not possible before AI agents available. Okay, bottleneck number 3. A lot of code, I would say, avalanche. That was the right name for that. I can see that we generate more and more code than before. Before we had, let's say, we refactor more code than we over-generate. Right now, we generate 5 times more code than we are able to refactor, and so on. So we are the biggest reviewer, but that's not the only case. That we need to review a lot of code. That's only, like, our feeling and so on. I mean, we don't feel very happy to review agent work because we want to create. We are creators and so on. So that's one thing. But another thing, it's if you have a lot of code, then you need a lot of context to store that in your agent memory, even with some smart techniques. Then you need a lot of tokens to go through that context. So and it's grows exponentially. So imagine that you generate much more code, and then you just exponentially need much more tokens to work on that. There are even a few examples from your form that you submitted that we don't know our own code anymore. Simply, we have pull requests from hell that we see thousands of lines of code change, and we either use some technique to validate that, or we just accept that and we just close our eyes, okay, and we cross our fingers just not to break anything, and so on. So we need to really pay attention on the volume, and how to actually manage that one. So first of all, as we said, we are in the management phase, so we need to measure the duplication, because the volume is a silent killer of the AI return of investment. for a longer run, it could be even worse because we don't know what the price of the tokens will be. We can see the prices of the memory right now. We can see how it's going. It's not going to be cheaper, I guess. So we really need to pay attention. We can start from deterministic rule first because that's cheaper and that's faster and so on. So things like code analysis and so on to see if there's no duplication. Then we can make use LLMs for reviewing the code, and then we can do it ourselves, I think, in that chain. And also, we should consider refactoring the code because, for example, let's imagine you have one feature. It takes some, let's say, code. I don't want to really go into the design patterns of the code in any language, but you have one feature. Then you ask agent to generate similar features based on that. Most of the time, you just copy that code. And after 4th or 5th feature, it would be the best from that point of view to maybe create another architecture. So it's more reusable. There's more like, especially in object-oriented programming, you can make something more abstract, reuse it, and so on. But from the point of the agent, it just duplicates more code and more code and more code. But if you ask it to refactor at some point, it could see, okay, I have a pattern of 5 similar features. So let's do a refactor, let's do it more abstract, let's do it less code. So actually, this refactor and trying to make code taking less space should be like kind of routine for your organization. And it was before refactor was meant like a new development, which led to new bugs. Right now, you can generate a lot of unit tests, you can generate a lot of specification and so on, and then this agent, it's, I think, pretty trustworthy when it comes to tasks like that, only on the code, not really touching business logic, not really trying to understand. But you need to really pay attention on that. Additional thing is to again share that techniques into your team. Sometimes there are ideas that, okay, you have some spare time, you have some spare limit of tokens, just run things like that. Okay, I can see that I have still in the limit this week. Let's run the really complicated refactor process and let's compare how it goes and so on. You don't need to merge that afterwards, but at least you don't let your tokens to be wasted in the limit because you are responsible for using that, let's say, asset. We were even joking that if you go for vacation, there should be an agent working for you that time, optimizing performance of the code, refactoring, and so on. But in general, I mean, we should measure the how to say, not tokens, but actually the delivery. And there was some ideas, of course, made by the NVIDIA owner that if your team is not spending X amount of the tokens, it means that you are behind. I don't think that is a best idea to measure efficiency of your team by tokens burned, because it's like paying firefighters per fire. It's fine for a while, but then people start to be more productive by using more tokens, but actually they're just using more tokens. So they're finding a way to use more tokens, not to be more productive. So analogy is that the firefighters start their own fire just to be paid for fighting with that. So I think you should not also forget about old velocity, not only story points, estimation, and so on. Not really declared, okay, we are speeding up, we are using agent, it's really faster, and so on. You should actually start to see if we deliver, what are the declarations based, and what are the comparing to actually the deployment frequency, what are the, let's say, before it was really hard to see the bottlenecks in the PR's age of it and so on. There were tools for that, but it was pretty difficult. Also, as again stated, code duplication. So you need to really see what is the duplication, how many errors you have in the code, what are the really, let's say, iterations of the agents, because then you can save tokens, and also, again, ask developers. I think that's pretty much really, I mean, important. That's one of idea. I can show you how we did that in one of our client. But before, I would like to ask you, I would like to hear from you, who of you knows how many tokens per person you are used this month? Which model provider is cheaper for which task type exactly, like? And do you run your own benchmarks, or do you trust your vendor pricing pages and so on? What is your feeling about that? So just, who of you knows? Yeah, simple tokens per person. That's simple things. Because in my opinion, you can't control what you don't measure. So that's the basic of management from every book probably. And here we have one example, I mean, of measurement task in Jira. Because before in Jira, you could measure, okay, the task is done, not done, whatever. So this status, then estimation, and then hours spent. But it was only hours spent by a developer, maybe QA, and so on. But actually, you could right now combine that with everything. So you can combine that with tokens used for that task, because you can ask agent to, at the end of the task, to add that to the measurement. You can ask about the decision time. I mean, because you have meeting transcripts, because you have Slack conversation, Teams, whatever, you have calendar events and so on. So you can take all of that, make some kind of output. So that's the feature cost. Maybe it's not an exact value, but it's some kind of output that you can compare to each other. You can benchmark. So we introduced that in the one, let's say, client, and we are able really to go really down into some measurements, and it was not really difficult with the existing process of lifecycle for that client. With some slightly changes, we're able to really adapt them to measure that, and there was a lot of really surprises out of that. That really sometimes really from the 1 hour of developers, but it was like 10 hours of decision making, meetings, and so on. It was so they could do that task 10 times out of those decision meetings and so on, and compare maybe. As you can see, I mean, the enterprises are spending a lot monthly on tokens, but only 1/3 of them says that it's a major cost process. So they are not really measuring; they're just paying the invoice, and they are really praying for people to use it wisely. As I said, you need to measure token usage, but it's should be not a measurement of efficiency. You should be measured that, because then you can optimize that, and you can compare that one month to another, to feature, and so on. And you should also pay attention to not overpaying for simple tasks. So use right model. So use right tools. We had a German client that let's say we are able to cut monthly token spent by 46% by using right model routing, by using right prompt caching, by using some other, let's say, tips and trick techniques, using right set of skills, MCP server, configuration of the harness, Claude code, and so on. But this is the way that we help companies in general, matching support to your AI maturity stage. So we measure this stage, and then we can consult and introduce, or we can, let's say, put somebody in your team that will help you. Okay, I see the question. Do you have a link to the presentation available online? Yes, we will send it afterwards to the people that are signing into the webinar. So don't worry about it. You will get it. Okay. Again, question for you. If you could rate your team AI maturity from 1 to 5, with 1 meaning that it's totally like baby, and 5 it's pretty mature AI use. So as you can see, the 1 is like a shadow AI, and the 5 is like, okay, we fully control, optimize, measuring tokens. We really optimize. I would say that probably I would not even give 5 for ourselves, because we constantly improving. Like I feel that from every week by week we are really speeding up, and of course that costs a lot of energy. We can let's say we can talk in a Q&A session about how it's in your organization. In general, I mean, if you will make assessment in your company, we can share the tool with you. You can use different tool. You can just meet on the retrospective meeting with your team. You need to start with something. I'm sharing right now with you the maturity survey. You can use it by QR code. It will be also sent to your team. I mean, to your email. You can use it with your team afterwards. But if you have some observations and you would like to meet and discuss, I'm open for one-to-one session over next few weeks. The spots are limited. I would recommend, if you have something interesting to discuss, or you would like to make it afterwards, just contact us. Because it depends on the organization. In some organization, it's a legal problem that you need to just push forward with some decisions and so on. People are afraid. In some companies, you're trying to use 5 tools the same time. In some companies, people just not talking to each other. But sometimes we can just share, ideas, because we tried a lot of things and it didn't work, or worked well for us. Maybe it worked for you, it won't work for us. But I would say that it's both ways, because everything is changing. So we can just, have an open conversation. We won't, let's say, sit on your shoulder with a sales rep afterwards just to try to sell you something. I would rather start with some discussion, and if we can help further, that's fine with me. If not, probably in most of those meetings, I also learn something new, which is fair enough for me. Oh, I can see that somebody is scanning the QR code. It's nice. Hopefully you can meet and discuss. But let's go to the Q&A session, and we have one question already happening. How we can measure and identify parts of the code that you need refactoring. Okay. I would start from the back. If you don't have test coverage, use agent to create one. As simple as that. Of course, it's not so easy. If you use SDD, or you will create the specification based on all the tickets, you can use Jira MCP. It works very, very good. or any other tools. If you have some more documentation, you can feed that with exports from your Teams or your Slack or your any other Discord, whatever, and then you can combine all that lot of text, and LLMs are made for text, so they love it. And then out of that, you can start to generate test coverage. Of course, you need still to pay attention, but it can help a lot. Then you can start with identifying, again, asking the agent to identify those parts. Start with that, because then you will see some interesting parts. I can show you what I did for one project. There was a lot of edge cases in that project, and there was a lot of unknowns in the base specification, and it was pretty hard to discover them. But we combined all the documents we had, even the contract for that project. We recorded all the meetings with the clients, of course, with their approval. We have all the discussions in the Slack. We have all the tickets in the Jira, and I use one comment sync in Claude Code, and I ask, okay, what are the edge cases that you see? What is inconsistent? What is missing there? What you will ask the client for? And I was honestly, with the Fable 5 model, I was super surprised with the things, because we have really smart people on board. Most of the questions were really covered by them, but there were a few of them that I was amazed. Like, okay, nobody thought about it. Not client, not developer. Sometimes really simple task. Okay, what if that and that happened? What if that will missing? And that could probably, it will be an error in the future. You will have a support ticket and fall. But some of them were really like almost like touching the business, and I mean touching the solving of the core issue of that project. So I was like, I started to type to everybody, oh, have you seen that and that? And I created output in a document for the rest of the team, and was like super surprised. I mean, so I would start with something like that, and then finding a way, because I'm not sure what is your goal. Maybe it's a performance, maybe it's amount of code, maybe it's an old version of the code, maybe it's the code is not readable at all by the LLMs, and so on. So I would start with, it's hard for me to say. It depends. I mean, it's a consulting answer, but it really depends. Okay, how do we handle AI hallucination in the projects? I think those newest I mean, if you are using right model, let's say the newest one from like Opus, like Fable, and so on, they are pretty good in general. But you need to sometimes force them to work more. Often I see that some task for them takes half an hour. I give them 1 hour. And surprisingly, it's pretty nice. Because then they know that they have time to work. Because sometimes the models don't have emotions, but they feel, okay, that task is taking me too long, I will skip it. So sometimes they are not reading full specification. If you are using skills and MCP servers, the tools are really, you can force them to use most of them, I mean, in general. So that's better than agents MD or whatever, or then better. If you use SDD, again, if you're using some kind of tool, not only creating specification in MD files or whatever, any format, but if you're using some tool for that, it also helps, because they have their own hints of avoiding hallucinations and so on. But of course, at the end of the day, you need to pay attention, and you need to use your brain for that. Hopefully, we still can use it. Okay. Another question. How do you define what parts of software are IP? Okay. I would say that first of all, if you are using enterprise LLMs, they have like option. The first thing what you do by using Claude Code is you use this checkbox: don't send that data, don't train on that data, whatever. If the Angular apps are intellectual property, I would say for some degree yes, and some degree not, because it's of course publicly available. Even if it's minified, agents can deal with that. You can try to deminify that with some results, better or worse. But I would say that intellectual property starts to lay in somewhere else. I mean, imagine doing a whole project and using SDD, and you generate all the code based on that SDD, and you're not sharing that SDD. Okay, you have a generated code, but actually the intellectual property is there because the most time was spent there, and those are just agents that are using. Probably if you have this SDD, you can generate it from scratch again, because if you keep SDD files up to date. So if that means that code is intellectual property by legal department, of course, yes, but by the business, I would say not so much anymore. I mean, it's maybe some really special algorithms, but in general, I would say it's shifting. But I would strongly recommend to pay attention for the, let's say, rules and so on. If not, you can try to use offline LLMs like on premises in the worst case, but at least start to talk and start to show the results to the CEO, let's say. Give him a Claude code and ask to play with that. At the end of the day, you will have an opposite result. He will see how many things he could create or she could create in single run, and he will be, okay, why we are not using that? And he will really shift his thinking. And then you will deal with other consequences that he will expect your efficiency to be 10 or 100 times more. But it's more complicated. We spoke about it in a different webinar, that it's hard to have it's hard to have a good balance, because there's a bias if you are one-man army just writing the code as you want, and small amount of code, obviously. Okay. I see there are some answers already for questions, and yeah, as I already described, I mean, we are strongly having a new approach to use that, and with really positive results. But you need to spend some time of creating your organization context, your project context, adding all the sources, and for that you should really, let's say, use whatever you can, at least to some degree. And even if Fable 5, for example, is a, let's say, expensive model, for that it's super cheap. I mean, for amount, sometimes we got the same discoveries with really smart people, but we needed like 1.5 hours of meeting for that, and there were like 6 really smart people sitting on that meeting. So actually it's a 6 hour of one expensive person, or even like 9 hours, yeah, by multiplying by 1.5. So it's really expensive, and so if you compare that to the Fable, and if you have a limit and you push it forward, and you stretch it, and you okay, think again, okay, try again, and spend 2 hours, whatever, you go to your limit for a few days, and this grooming, I mean, it could lead to amazing results. You will be really surprised, because those questions are asked by AI agent are really sophisticated, I would say. Okay, about forcing agent to follow the rules. As I said, you need to give him more time. I think that depends by different. If you use some kind of harness, I mean, there's a huge difference by using, let's say, you have anthropic models. You have, let's say, Opus 5. If you're using Opus by your desktop application, console application, and web application, or you're using it even in, let's say, using it in your IDE or open AI, whatever, just using some kind of model without harness, it's much harder. So I would recommend to go as deep as you can with your harness. Let's say you Claude Code and with Claude Console, and define by some commands, by installing some skills, by installing some tools. That helps a lot to, let's say, force agent. I mean, you cannot be 100% sure, but from my observations, it's really almost 100% if they are using it. Of course, again, if the context it's in volume, it's really huge, then you need different strategies. We can talk about it in one-on-one, but in general, one of them would be to isolate some part, depending on, I don't know, domain, some module or whatever. So then super reduce the context and then operate on that, and then create some kind of output files of that, and then create architectures of those output files, and then work of them. Because imagine that you are connecting to some kind of API, and this API is just well documented, and it's probably API could have a, I don't know, 100,000 line of code, but documentation is probably a few pages, just how to use the API. And something similar could happen here. So just to reduce and reduce the context. Also, you can compact it in the tool, but that's different story. Okay. Do you have any maybe more questions for me? Because we are here for an hour. If you have some more specific questions, again, you can book a free one-on-one session. Of course, it's limited time. I have also limited time. I have few projects going on. I have few strategic things to do in the company. So, but I'm really looking forward. You can invite me on LinkedIn to talk on different aspects as well in the future. Okay, there's one question. Let's try to, yeah. Yeah, that I would say that depend. Unfortunately, I can't directly answer for that. There are different strategies for that. One of them would be, again, SDD. It's not answer for everything, but it's really nice way. Another thing is isolating. You could try to separate the code, so doing some kind of how to say, limited availability of the code, and then write some unit test based on the how it's supposed to work, and then you can clash it with actual the code and see what's happening. So there are different approach, but if you have time of an agent, and the time of an agent, I mean, he's never, I mean, maybe he's expensive sometimes, but he's never bored with trying different approaches. You can even try to discover a list of 5 approaches and run them simultaneously, and then see the results and compare them. So there's a lot of different ways. You just need to shift a bit your, let's say, approach thinking to that. There's a question, any thoughts of IBM Bob? I don't have any thoughts on that, unfortunately. As I said, I have a lot of tasks, and I have a lot of smart people in the company that are helping me, but I cannot be everywhere and see every option. So that's a really nice question. I would say that I'm still in a really deep process of reorganizing everything, because before it was pretty simple. We are a specialized company, so we have really narrow. We had a really narrow specialty in some parts, especially with the front end. So that was pretty easy to have a workflow there. You have a design, you challenge it, you write it, you test it, you ship it, whatever. I mean, as simple as that for somebody working in that industry for 20 years. Right now, I'm rewriting everything from scratch, I would say, in my head, and I have like probably 1,000 slides of my own thoughts written down. Sometimes those are really small things that, whenever you have time, just do a do a quality assurance, and then maybe you find different results. So just you can stress the system whole time if you have a, of course, limit. Sometimes team need to collaborate differently. Sometimes the guy that was a let's say front-end or back-end developer need to be full stack, but actually doing DevOpsing and some QA and some design. So I would say from that point of view, I still remember the time that there was a position called web developer that was responsible for hosting the server, database, writing the code, mostly in PHP, that you have front end and back end same time. Then so I already covered the DevOpsing part, full stack part. Also, you need to present with some design on your own, easier for backend system, more challenging for websites. And then you need to test it, ship it, sometimes maybe some test servers and so on. But you need to set up the whole release and so on. So I think we going back for that, but it extends even more, because you can now do some business decisions maybe by not actually making that decision, but actually prototyping, doing that stuff and showing that to the decision makers, to the business people. Sometimes decision people could present you with the HTML page that they prefer, that they generated, because you show them how. So it's really shifting. So they can be designers. So right now we have a big overlapping of the roles. And one of our clients from US, he's a very smart person, and he called that you need to be a creator. So not a developer anymore. You need to be a creator responsible for more even tasks. So you make automatic tests, you make proposals for the business, you make design proposals, and you actually present them in a nice way. Okay, I think we are running a bit out of time, I guess. Okay, yeah, dispatching agents. Okay. Okay, I think that's pretty much for today. And the closing, I mean, as I said, you can invite me on LinkedIn. You can invite me on and follow me on X. That's it from me for today, guys. I really appreciated your presence. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the great questions. And thank you for sticking by the very end. I see pretty huge amount of people. As for my, I'm always appreciate single person, but I see a few of you here still here. You will get a recording. You will get an assessment tool by email shortly, and take care, and I hope to see you on the call soon, or any other event, or in our community. So thank you very much, and goodbye, everyone.